Hey, what's up guys, Adam here, and today I'm going to be giving you the long-awaited review of the Behringer Q802 Mixer. Now before I go ahead and show the demonstration of the mixer in use, I thought I'd go ahead and talk to you about my experience using the mixer up until now. So for someone like myself who never really had any hands-on experience using mixers in the past, it can be quite a daunting experience looking at all these dials and thinking, okay, where do I start? You know, what do I go ahead and adjust? What do I go ahead and move? And I'll be honest, there are a lot more user-friendly models out there, such as the Scarlett 2i2, which do look a lot more user-friendly as opposed to the Behringer. But I mean, for someone who pretty much came from knowing nothing about mixers to pretty much using a mixer right now, I'll be honest with you, the experience is not as daunting as it may seem by looking at all these dials. So I can assure you, don't be worried about getting a mixer like this. I'm sure you'll be on board with it within a few weeks' time. So the reason I went ahead and purchased this mixer, and I probably mentioned this now in the unboxing, which probably seems like years ago now, but I've gone ahead and went with this mixer so I can go ahead and use it with my MXL 990 and MXL 991. Now, as you know, that these are two condenser microphones, so it requires something called phantom power in order to actually power these two microphones. But I'm actually using the MXL 990 to record this video. So the Behringer Q802 wasn't the very first mixer that I went ahead and took a look at. I actually took a look at the smaller brother to this version, which is the 302 USB. But there's only £15 between both that and this, so there was no point going ahead and investing in the smaller one. I could just spend £15 extra and get the large one with two XLR inputs as opposed to just the one. So I went ahead and got the Q802 just for future proofing's sake. So as far as build quality goes, the main construction of the Q802 is mainly made out of metal, although there are some plastics around the sides of the device, but the actual internals and the front and back plates are actually constructed out of metal. So apart from all the interface options at the front of the mixer, we're going to get two further inputs at the back. One is going to be the power input, and the second one is going to be the USB input. That's going to be USB type B to USB type A, and the USB lead will be included with the rest of the accessories. So that's pretty much my experience using the Q802 mixer. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you the mixer live in action. Okay, so just for reference, the microphone that is being used with this mixer at this current time for this test is the MXL 990. Okay, so the way this mixer works is that it works in a series of tracks. So as you can see, you have track number 1, track number 2, and then track 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 are shared into one complete track. So track number 1 and 2 are your main input tracks, and they're pretty much identical. I mean, if you go ahead and start at the top, as you can see, the first input that we're going to have is going to be the XLR input, which is where the microphone is currently plugged in at this current time. Then below that, you have your balanced and unbalanced quarter-inch jack for your sort of karaoke style microphones or your guitars or amplified instruments. Then below that, we have the added gain. Now, I really wouldn't recommend using this unless you're using a dynamic microphone. If you're using a condenser microphone, if you go ahead and adjust the gain dial, you're going to be bringing up way too much background noise. So unless you're using a very low sensitivity microphone like a dynamic microphone, you really don't want to go ahead and adjust this dial at all. So on the lower part of the track, as you can see, we're going to have our compression down. This is only really used if you're using instruments, for example. Then we have our highs, mids, and our low adjustments. So I'm going to go ahead and first adjust the high to show you how it sounds if I go ahead and increase that. As you can see, you can probably hear a lot more highs in my voice. I'm going to go ahead and adjust that back to neutral. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the mids. As you can see, if I turn that, you can probably hear a bit more of the mid tones in my voice. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and adjust the lower tones, or the bass if you want to call it that. And as you can see, you can hear a lot more bass within my voice. Then you have your FX dial itself, which is mainly going to be used if you're using this live with a recording program on your computer. So below the FX, we have our left and right pan. So if I go ahead and adjust it to the right, as you can see, go ahead and move it to the left, as you can see, all of my audio shifts onto the left hand pan. And the final dial is going to be our input level controller for this specific track. So if I go ahead and adjust, as you can see, if I lower it, as you can see, my voice becomes increasingly quieter. And if I go ahead and increase it back to my usual position, as you can see, my voice returns once again. So as for tracks 3/4 and 5/6, this is where you're going to be using more of your professional grade audio gear. So as you can see, we have our FX send and auxiliary return. We also have our line in and line out jacks, as you can see at the top here. Now the lower tracks for 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 are pretty much identical to tracks 1 and 2, with the fact that you can go ahead and adjust your mids, highs and lows, as well as your left and right pan. So those are pretty much identical to tracks 1 and 2. And then to the right of the FX send, as you can see, we have the headphone out, which is where I mainly plug my speakers into. Since they're not studio monitors, I don't have to go ahead and use the 1/4 inch jack, so I can simply use a 3.5mm jack and plug it into the headphone output. And then below that, we're going to have our control room. And then finally, we're going to have our main audio out speakers there. So everything from the mixer is pretty much going to be pushed out through your main studio driver speakers at the very end of the mixer. So below the control room out and the main mix out, as you can see below that, we're going to have our final input dials, and the first one is going to be the RCA, or if you live in the UK, it's going to be the phono in and the phono out. Then we're going to have our auxiliary return, which is going to work in conjunction with what's listed above tracks 3/4. So we have 2 buttons below the auxiliary return dial. We're going to have the button which transfers everything to the headphones, and then we have a button below that which transfers everything to the main mix. So to the right hand side of those 2 buttons, we're going to have our peak meter. Now you really want to keep a good eye on this. You don't want it to go over into the red zone, because that will mean that your audio is clipping and that you have to bring some of your audio levels down. Now below that, we're going to have our 2 final dials. The dial on the left is going to be your dial to go ahead and adjust all of the sound that you hear throughout your speakers and your headphones. The dial on the right is going to be your last dial to go ahead and adjust all of the inputs within the mixer. So now guys, it's pretty much been the full review of the Behringer Q802 USB Mixer. Now if you enjoyed, then definitely be sure to give me a big thumbs up down below. And of course, go ahead and subscribe if you want to go ahead and see more tech videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next tech video. Bye for now.